The photograph was facing the door like it had been waiting for her. Lily had been told on her first day that the room at the end of the upper corridor was not on her schedule. Dorothy had said it plainly, without explanation, in the way of someone who had decided how much information to give and had given exactly that amount. So Lily had cleaned everything else. The 5 guest rooms, the 2 studies, the long hallway with the hardwood floors that needed doing on hands and knees, and she had walked past that door every single morning for 2 days without touching the handle. She was 25 years old. She had 2 jobs and a stack of her mother's medical bills on her kitchen table at home, and she was not in the business of making trouble for herself. But on the 3rd morning the door was open. Not wide, just ajar, the way a door is when someone left before they finished their thought and did not pull it fully closed. Lily stood in the corridor with her cleaning caddy and looked at the gap. Then she pushed it open with 2 fingers and stepped inside. The room was large and still and orderly in the way of rooms that are not lived in as much as maintained. A bed made with precision. Curtains half drawn against the Connecticut morning. Books on a shelf that were arranged by someone who actually read them. And on the bedside table, next to a brass reading lamp and a glass of water, a silver-framed photograph. She crossed the room. She picked it up. The woman in the photograph was young. Mid-20s, standing in a summer garden somewhere, wearing a pale blue dress Lily had never seen, laughing at something off-camera with her whole face. Not the careful smile Lily knew from the pictures on the mantelpiece at home, but something completely unguarded, completely alive, the expression of a woman who does not know she is about to be captured and would not have minded if she did. The face was her mother's. Caroline Harmon's face, 20 years younger, standing in a garden Lily had never seen, wearing a dress Lily had never known existed. She was still holding it when she heard footsteps in the corridor. Robert Calloway appeared in the doorway. He was in his early 60s, tall and silver-haired, and he looked at her the way he had looked at her on the first morning in the hallway, a fraction of a second too long, a pause that was not quite surprise and not quite recognition but something that lived between the two. He looked at the photograph in her hands. He looked at her face. He did not say anything immediately, and neither did she, and the room held the silence between them the way a room does when both people in it know that whatever comes next is going to matter. "That's my mother," Lily said. Her voice came out steadier than the rest of her felt. "Yes," Robert said. "I know." She set the photograph down on the bedside table very carefully. "How do you have a photograph of my mother?" "I have more than one," he said. Something moved through her chest that she did not have a name for yet. "I think you need to explain that." He asked her to come downstairs. She did not move. He asked again, quietly, and said please, and something in the word please made her follow him because it did not sound like a man managing a situation. It sounded like a man who had been waiting a long time to stop managing one. Dorothy was in the kitchen when they came in. She looked up and then looked back down at the counter she was wiping, which told Lily immediately that Dorothy already knew what was happening and that Dorothy had known it was coming. Lily filed that away carefully. She would return to it. Robert sat at the kitchen table. He gestured to the chair across from him. Lily did not sit. She stood with her arms folded and looked at him and waited. "Your mother's name was Caroline Harmon," he said. "I know my mother's name. She grew up in Vermont. She came to New York at 22. She worked as a seamstress and an alterations tailor in the garment district." He was not reading from anything. These were not facts he had looked up. These were facts he had carried in the body for a long time. "We met in 1995. She was 23. I was 33 and coming out of a difficult first marriage." He stopped for a moment. "We were together for 2 years. Lily looked at him across the kitchen table. "My mother never mentioned your name," she said. "Not once. Not in 26 years. "I know. She never mentioned anyone from before Vermont. She never talked about New York. She told me she had a different life once, and she had left it behind, and I respected that, and I never pushed her." Lily's voice was careful and precise, and holding something at a careful distance. "She died 6 months ago, and I am still finding out who she was. So, I need you to tell me everything. Right now. All of it." Robert looked at her for a long moment. He looked at her the way someone looks at a person they have been imagining for a long time and are now trying to reconcile with the real thing. I wanted to marry her, he said. She said yes. We had a date. 3 weeks before the wedding she was gone. No letter. No phone call. No explanation. I looked for 2 years and found nothing. He paused. I never knew she was pregnant when she left. The kitchen was absolutely silent. Lily pulled out the chair. She sat down. You're telling me you're my father. I'm telling you what I know, Robert said, which is that I loved your mother and she disappeared, and I never understood why. Not until 6 months ago. Lily looked at Dorothy. Dorothy had stopped pretending to wipe the counter. She was looking at Lily directly with the expression of a woman who's been holding a door closed for a very long time and has finally been given permission to open it. You knew, Lily said. Dorothy said, yes. Sit properly. There is more to tell. Dorothy sat down at the kitchen table for the first time in what felt like years. She folded her hands in front of her the way people do when they are about to say something that has been waiting inside them for a long time and has finally found the door. Your mother and I met in New York in 1994, she said. She had just arrived from Vermont and she was 22 years old and she knew nobody, and I was working for the Calloway family and living in the staff apartment on the Upper East Side. We met at a church group on a Wednesday evening and we were friends from that first night. She looked at Lily steadily. I watched her fall in love with Robert. I watched her agree to marry him. I was going to be at the wedding. And then I watched what happened 3 weeks before the date. What happened? Lily said. Eleanor Calloway came to your mother's apartment in Midtown on a Tuesday evening. Dorothy's voice stayed level. Robert's first wife. They had been divorced for 2 years, but she had a son with Robert, Weston, who was 8 years old at the time. She came alone. She sat down in your mother's living room and she explained very carefully and very quietly what would happen if the wedding went ahead. Dorothy paused. The custody arrangement for Weston would be challenged in court. Robert's business, he was building the company then, not yet established, everything was still fragile, would suffer from the kind of social and professional damage that Eleanor knew exactly how to cause. She told your mother that a 23-year-old seamstress from rural Vermont with no money and no connections was not something Robert could afford, even if he did not know it yet. And that the most loving thing your mother could do for the man she intended to marry was to remove herself from his life entirely. Lily said nothing. She was looking at the table in front of her. Your mother believed her, Dorothy said. She was 23 years old and she was alone, and Eleanor Calloway was one of the most socially connected women in New York, and she had come to your mother's apartment instead of sending a lawyer, which meant she was serious. And your mother loved Robert. She genuinely, completely loved him. She thought she was protecting him. Dorothy's voice softened slightly. She packed one bag. She called me the morning she left and said goodbye, and told me not to tell him where she had gone. I did not know she was pregnant. She did not know she was pregnant. She found out 2 weeks after she got back to Vermont. She never came back, Lily said quietly. She told me once, years later, that by the time she knew about you, she had already told herself the decision was made. That going back would look like she had manufactured a reason to return. She was too proud and too frightened, and she had convinced herself that staying away was still protecting him. Dorothy looked at her directly. She was wrong, but she meant it as love. That is the truest thing I can tell you about your mother. Lily looked up. Her eyes were dry. Her jaw was tight. She spent 26 years protecting a man who spent 26 years trying to find her, she said. And neither of them knew what the other one was doing. No, Dorothy said. They did not. Robert had been quiet for several minutes. He was looking at his hands on the table with the expression of a man assembling a picture that has been missing pieces for 30 years and is only now seeing the whole thing. She thought she was doing right by me, he said. It came out low and rough. She gave up everything she thought she was protecting, and I never got to tell her she was wrong. She knew she was wrong eventually, Dorothy said quietly. She just ran out of time. The kitchen held that for a moment. Lily pushed back her chair and stood up. She walked to the kitchen window and looked out at the estate grounds, the wide lawn, the old oak trees, the garden beyond the stone wall. She thought about a 23-year-old woman standing in a Vermont apartment with a single bag and a decision she thought was the most selfless thing she had ever done. She thought about 26 years of silence that had felt, from the inside, like protection. She thought about every time she had asked her mother about her father and received a quiet deflection and accepted it because Caroline Harmon had a way of closing doors that made you feel like walking through them would cost her something. She kept a dress, Lily said without turning around. A pale blue dress in a box at the back of her wardrobe. She never wore it. She never explained it. I always thought it was just something she could not throw away. It was the dress she was wearing the first night Robert took her to dinner, Dorothy said. She told me about it once. She said it was the one thing she kept because she could not make herself get rid of the year she had been happiest. Lily turned around. She looked at Robert. Did you know she had kept it?
No, he said.
I did not know any of this. I did not know she was in Vermont. I did not know your name. I did not know you existed until Dorothy came to me 6 months ago and told me Caroline had died and that she had a daughter. He looked at her steadily. I have been trying to figure out how to find you ever since. Dorothy suggested the agency placement because she thought it should happen here, in person and not over phone call. She was right about that, Lily said. She heard tires on the gravel driveway outside. Fast, deliberate. The sound of someone who had not been invited and had come anyway. Dorothy looked at the window. Robert's expression changed in the specific way of a man who knows exactly who has just arrived and knows exactly what it means. Weston, Robert said. How does he know I'm here? Lily said. He has been monitoring the estate schedule since Dorothy arranged the placement. Robert stood. I told him it was routine. He did not believe me. He moved toward the hallway. Let me speak to him first. No, Lily said, already moving past him. I'm done with people in this house deciding what I should hear and when I should hear it. That is how we got here in the first place. She reached the front door before Robert did and pulled it open. Weston Calloway was on the front step, car keys in hand, jaw set, with the look of a man who had driven fast from the city and had spent the whole drive rehearsing something. He was in his late 30s, well-dressed, and he looked at Lily with an expression that was trying to be neutral and was not managing it. You must be the new housekeeper, he said. I was, Lily said. I've had a significant change in circumstances in the last hour. Weston looked past her at his father standing in the hallway. Something moved across his face that was not quite anger and not quite fear but lived in the space between them.
Dad, he said.
What is going on? Come inside, Robert said. I'd like an answer first. And you'll get one. Inside. Weston stepped through the door. He looked at Lily the way people look at something that has appeared in a space where they did not expect to find it, with the particular assessment of someone calculating a threat before they have confirmed what kind of threat it is. They stood in the entrance hallway, the three of them, and Dorothy appeared at the far end from the kitchen and stopped there, and the house was very quiet around all of them. Her name is Lily Harmon, Robert said. Her mother was Caroline Harmon. Caroline and I were engaged in 1997, before she left. I have spent 30 years not knowing why. He looked at his sons steadily. Lily is my daughter. Weston was quiet for a moment. Then he said, That's not possible. It is completely possible, Robert said. And it is true. You have no proof of. I have letters. I have photographs. I have Dorothy's testimony, and I have a DNA test scheduled for Thursday, which will confirm what I already know. Robert's voice was even and final. I am not asking for your agreement, Weston. I am telling you the facts. Weston looked at Lily. She looked back at him without apology and without aggression, just directly, the way her mother had apparently looked at Eleanor Calloway on a Tuesday evening in 1997, with the clear eyes of someone who has already made their decision about who they are in a room regardless of what the room thinks about it. She came here to clean the house, Weston said. 2 weeks ago, she was nobody. 2 weeks ago, I was someone with a job to do and a dead mother and a pile of medical bills, Lily said. I am still all of those things. What changed is that I found out some information that your family has apparently had for 6 months and decided to deliver via housekeeping placement. She looked at Robert briefly and then back at Weston. I am not here for your money. I did not come looking for this. I came here to work and I found a photograph, and now I am standing in a hallway being told my entire life was built on a decision my mother made at 23 because someone in this family told her she was not enough." She paused. "So, I would appreciate it if you did not talk to me like I am a problem that has shown up on your doorstep. I did not choose this any more than you did." Weston stared at her. Something shifted in his expression, not softness exactly, but the beginning of the recognition that the speech he had rehearsed in the car was not the right speech for the person standing in front of him. Robert said, "There will be a meeting with my lawyer next week. You will be part of it. Everything will be handled properly and transparently, and I will not be making decisions about Lily's future without her present." He looked at Weston. "And I will not be making decisions about her future based on fear. Is that understood?" Weston said nothing for a long moment. Then he said, "I need some time." "You have until Thursday," Robert said. "After that we meet with the lawyer regardless." Weston looked at Lily one more time. She held his gaze. He nodded once, not warmly, not with welcome, but with the acknowledgement of a man who has run out of a particular kind of room, and he walked back out through the front door and got in his car and drove away. The house was quiet again. Dorothy went back to the kitchen. Robert looked at Lily and said, "I'm sorry. For the way that happened. For all of the ways this has happened." "I know," she said. "I'm not ready to talk about what comes next. Not today." "I understand. But I want to come back," she said. "Not to clean. Just to talk. When I'm ready." "Whenever you are," Robert said. "I will be here." She drove back to Vermont that afternoon. 2 hours on the highway with the radio off and her hands steady on the wheel, and her mind doing the quiet, methodical work of rebuilding a picture of a person she thought she had known completely. Her mother had been 23 years old and alone, and someone powerful had told her she was not enough for the man she loved, and she had believed it. She had spent 26 years believing it. She had raised a daughter alone and worked long hours and made a life out of the decision, and she had never once complained about it in a way that asked for sympathy. She had just lived it. Quietly. Completely. The way Caroline Harmon did everything. Lily got back to the apartment at 6 in the evening. She made herself tea and sat with it for a while, and then she went to her mother's bedroom and opened the wardrobe and took down the box from the back shelf. She sat on the edge of the bed and lifted the lid. The pale blue dress was inside, folded with care, wrapped in tissue paper that had yellowed slightly at the edges. She lifted it out and held it in both hands and looked at it for a long time. A 23-year-old woman had worn this dress on the night she fell in love and had kept it for 30 years in a box at the back of a wardrobe because she could not make herself let go of the year she had been happiest. She had never told her daughter. She had never explained. She had simply kept it carefully in case. Lily folded it back. She put it in the box and put the box on the bed beside her, and she sat with her mother's last kept thing in the quiet of the apartment, and she thought that love and silence and sacrifice were sometimes the same word, and that understanding a person completely sometimes took longer than their life allowed. She was going to have to learn the rest from a man her mother had protected for 30 years without his knowledge. She was going to have to build something from a story that should have started long before she was born. She did not know what to call Robert Calloway yet. She did not know what any of this made her, or what she wanted from it, or where it ended. But she opened the box again, and she took out the pale blue dress, and she held it against her chest in the quiet room, and she thought about her mother at 23, standing in a garden somewhere, laughing with her whole face, wearing this dress, not yet knowing what was coming. She thought about how much of a person you never get to know while they are alive. How much of them waits in boxes and old photographs and silences that were always meant to be answers. She was going to find out the rest.
She was going to take her time.
She was going to do it properly. That was enough for tonight. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell me, was Caroline right to keep the secret, or did Lily deserve to know the truth from the very beginning? I want to hear what you think. Hit that like button. Subscribe right now because a brand new story lands every single week, and I will see you in the next video.